Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to all that is watching, all the beautiful souls. Hope everyone is doing well. Just out for another walk, and I had a lot on my mind. That I wanted to share. It's pretty cold outside, so I always stay strapped up. But I wanted to talk about my personal experience with addiction, right? And some of you might be looking at this, right, and be like, addiction? What could you possibly be addicted to? And I think about that, right? I hear about other people's experience with addiction, whether it be to drugs, whether it be to X-rated content, whether it be to, a person, right? Being addicted to a person, right? And I want to talk about, my addiction to misery, right? My addiction to misery, my love that I had for being in a state of just self-deprecation, of hating on myself, of hating others, right? I would stay in this miserable state for such a long time, right? Such a long time. And it wasn't until, last year that I really started to try to break free from that. This state of self-proclaimed misery that I put on myself, right? I would make excuses for myself all the time. I'll make excuses for my actions, for why I was behaving a certain way that I was. How you doing, sir? I'll make excuses all the time. I'll be like, oh man, my life is so terrible because X, Y, and Z. Oh, my parents did this. Oh man, these people treated me this way, or I would get bullied or mistreated, or man, other people would I hate the way that the world looks at me, just because of the color of my skin, or man, I feel like an outsider, man. I feel so alone. I feel so, like it was constant. It was constant, man. And I think my brother, I was talking with him rather recently. I think he put it best. I had such a downer mindset. I would always assume the worst, and I just I just had such a poor mindset, how I treated everything, and it was bad, man. There was a lot of stuff that happened in my life, right? I'm not gonna take away from that, right? But the way that I responded, or the way that I allowed these things to affect me, was terrible, and I was so it was like a sick relationship that I had with this idea of being miserable, the idea of being healed never was really appealing to me, because to me, being miserable was that's what gave me character. And I met a lot of people during my worst times, right? And some of them helped me out. But others, fed on my misery. You are what you attract. Pretty sure that's a saying, or if it's not a saying, that's how I feel. You are what you attract. If you are an addict, you're gonna attract more addicts into your life. If you are successful, you're gonna attract successful people into your life, right? That's how I believe. And I'm getting sidetracked now. Going back into the idea of just being miserable, or just loving the idea of being miserable, right? It was sick, there were so many people, so many things that have happened to me, that I just had that I let take such a deep-rooted control on my life, over my life, how I saw things, how I treated things, how I treated myself. And, it was bad. It was bad, but it wasn't until recently that I realized that, I alone have the power to change how everything affects me. I alone have the power to alchemize this pain and turn it into something beautiful. Turn it into what I would have perceived as, just bad luck or a curse into something that can be useful to me, into a positive, into something beautiful, right? I alone have the power to do this, right? And it's taken me so long to realize that it was all in my head, this love of misery, it was all in my head. I would spend so many hours, so much time indulging in, different vices, or just making excuses, like I was saying earlier, for myself, right? For why I was in the position that I was in my life. And I realized, I'm in the position, or I was in the position that I was in because of me and only me, right? Once I turned 18, I had no more excuses. I had no more excuses for being in the position that I was in. The only reason that I stayed, in such a low energy or in such a low vibration is because of me and only me, right? I think part of, overcoming any problem, whether it be addiction, whether it be, lust, whether it be a problem that, you have with family, is acknowledging that it is a problem. Acknowledging it, right? Don't quote me on this. I've only seen just videos, so I'm not completely sure, but I'm pretty sure that the first part of, of people recovering from alcoholism, or of alcoholics recovering, is admitting that they're an alcoholic, right? Putting that label on themselves, right? And taking accountability for their behavior, right? Their actions, their choices. Taking accountability. And that's what I had to do, take accountability for, my own self-loathing, self-hatred, everything that I perceived as a negative. Take accountability for that and learn to change it. Learn to turn all that negative energy that I had into brightness. Learn to love myself instead of constantly hating myself. And I've come a long way. And I've said this before on this channel, acknowledge the progress that you've made. And I try to take my own advice, to the best of my ability, right? I acknowledge my own progress. One of the ways that I do that is that I just read my journal. I've been journaling for, I think, 4 years now, just 4 years. And, just acknowledging the different points in my life, or the different parts of, just how I was feeling that day. And I reflect back on it. I'm like, dang, I've come a long way. I used to, like I was saying, I used to be in these cycles of just cycles of misery, or engaging in the same things every single day. Engaging in the same vices, trying to escape my reality, right? Instead of facing what was my reality, what was within. I was a person who could not sit alone in their own being, because my own being frightened me. It made me uncomfortable. But as soon as I started, as soon as I was basically alone, I was alone with my own thoughts. I was like, man, I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to make it. But I did make it. Now I'm able to sit with myself more comfortably, and it's still scary at times. Even through all the work that I've done, all the inner work, all the outer work, engaging in hobbies instead of engaging in my vices that I would enjoy, whether that would have been, games, lust, other stuff, right? Instead of engaging in those, engaging in hobbies that I've always wanted to do, or I would make excuses for myself in the past that I no longer wanted to, and just do the best I can. And so I say all this to say, my addiction with misery has been long and winding and deep rooted in things that have happened in my childhood that I've let spiral out of control. I let them spiral out of control, okay? But I took accountability for it. And I know whoever's watching this, I don't know your life, obviously. Maybe everything I've said today doesn't mean anything. Don't mean shit, right? But what I can say, if there's something that you want to do, or if there's something that you need to do, or there's something that's stopping you, right? I think the first thing that you could do is take accountability for why you are in the position that you are in, and then only then will things go forward. Anyways, I'm gonna wrap it up around here. I hope someone was able to take away something from this. If you're seeing this, I love you. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Make sure to take care of yourself, because only you can take care of you. And always remember, just make sure to be accountable for where you are. Have a good one.